I've sat through meetings while I'm actively having a panic attack. I think a man would be very comfortable being like, I can't do this right now.
I've got it, and I've been a professional for this many years. Like, it's not a problem for me, but it is. Like, it's all of us like do that. And I think the more you start to like even like hear people who might even have more experience, like they get tripped up on their words. They don't really know how to say it. And I think the moment that happens, there is like almost like a human connection.
A lot of the employees are a lot younger. They're much closer to my daughter's and son's age than they are to mine. I think that they can feel that. And I think that that's been a big game changer.
Welcome to the Best Fear Nest podcast put on by Owl Roofing. I'm Bia, and today I'm very excited because we are joined by Erin, who is our HR manager at Hook Agency.
Hello.
So super excited to chat with her. She's a mom in the Twin Cities and also has a very important job at Hook, hiring, firing, making career decisions and like helping people navigate all of the fun things that go on in a business.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us.
I am so excited to be here.
Excited.
I listened to both of the episodes of your podcast today, and
I love
the vibe, and so I was really excited to join in. Thank you for inviting me.
And we were saying, like, I think this is a cool thing to talk about because people are sometimes, like, we've seen a lot of stuff where women are maybe leaving the workforce.
Yeah.
And they've said in higher numbers than ever before, or, like, in the last, like, 20 years. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about not only making that decision and have you seen people make that decision, and also if people want to re-enter, talking about ways to do that. And I also think that people are re-entering the workforce for reasons other than just parenting.
Yeah.
So talking about what we're looking for and ways to put yourself above other candidates. How many applications do we get when we
Oh, gosh, we get a lot.
Yeah.
We get a lot of applications. And I think a majority of them are women, surprisingly. And I think, when you're making the decision to either leave the workforce or re-enter it, I think it's a different scenario for every person. Yeah. And it's a one-off situation, and you need to do what you feel is best for you and your family if you have a family. And I think that it's a great time to be a woman in the workforce. You know, I think that women are really starting to show that they can do everything that men can do, and maybe even a little bit better, So.
Well, and I think we've got a pretty good split. I think we're about 50-50 at Hook with and we have a younger team at Hook, but I think also just seeing people be able to really balance both and having a little bit more of that flexibility. What do you think is something that is different and almost better? I remember hiring you, and I think you were maybe one of our first moms that we hired at Hook.
I think so.
And I was I just know that in the role that Erin first came into Hook in an onboarding role, so it was we didn't really have it very well developed what we were going to do on a day-to-day basis, but I just knew it was going to be basically taking over a lot of tasks for me, and it was kind of ambiguous, and I was I feel like a mom is going to be the number one type of person that can figure stuff out, and we need somebody who doesn't have to follow a playbook. And I think that that's something that as you get through parenthood, it's there is just no rules, and you don't get a clear direction, and hey, here's how to do this on a random day. So we wanted, I remember seeing that and being this is a huge advantage. Yeah. So what do you think and now we have other moms at Hook.
Yes.
But what do you think has been the biggest surprise to you hiring now with a younger workforce, and also we are probably pretty 50-50?
I think my biggest surprise is how important culture is. I think that's the biggest thing. I think, I'm a little older than the demographic at our company. And I remember, 20 years ago when I was entering the workforce, I was focused on, hard benefits, compensation. I wasn't thinking about my work-life balance. I was a single mom. I was willing to put in as much work as I needed to put in. But the workforce now, they realize that it's not just about money. It's not just about benefits. Those things are very important, of course. But I think that people now are realizing I deserve to have a life outside of work. I deserve to come to work and be appreciated and feel safe. We talked about psychological safety the other day. And I think that for me is the biggest change that I've seen. And honestly, I love it. And I think Hook is a great example of an employer that really recognizes that and empowers their employees to, strive for that type of culture. And I think that a lot of other companies are starting to do the same. And I love it because I think we can probably all speak to toxic work environments that we've been in. And I love that now those types of environments are being called out, and it's not okay to do that. And so I think that's amazing.
That's awesome.
And what's something that you think like people in a work environment that might feel toxic, like what's one thing that they can do to like help make their environment feel better? Obviously sometimes it's finding a new job and like finding a different place, but sometimes that actually isn't realistic. So what do you think would be your advice for somebody who feels a little stuck?
That's a good question. I think if you feel comfortable bringing that issue up to leadership, that would absolutely be the best way to go. Maybe they don't realize it. Maybe they aren't focused on it. And so I think just like bringing the issue up and making people aware of it is a big thing. If you're in a space where you aren't able to do that or you don't feel safe doing that, you might want to reconsider your place of employment. But if if you love your job and you think that it's salvageable, then be the catalyst for change. Be the person who speaks out and says, hey, I feel this way about our culture. Don't just bring it up as an issue. Follow up and say, here's some ideas I have to, navigate this, or here's some things that I would love to implement and I can help, implement those things. Talk to your coworkers and see if they're feeling similarly, and not in a way of like, you're not trying to like run a coup on the company or anything, but just come together and say, hey, do we want to fix this? Do we want to fix this? How can we fix this? Let's come with solutions and let's figure out like how to make this work.
Sometimes it is just like learning, and like at Hook, we've had to navigate, like I said, we didn't start the company with like a lot of people who had kids. And so I think like learning to be a company that can support families and like what that looks like is going to be a little bit different for everybody. But what do you think has been like the biggest challenge now stepping into a little, like we're almost in a little bit of a different generation at Hook. So I think it's like, as we're learning how to be an employer that can support parenthood, what do you think has been like the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge is, especially on a small team, is navigating that line of, this is my friend, this is my coworker, I care about this person, and also looking at the business side of things and saying, okay, I want to give this person as much paid time off as they want. I want this person to, be able to spend the first few months with their family and not worry about work. But on the flip side, knowing that this is a business and sometimes we can't give everything that we want. And so I think the most challenging part is trying to find that happy medium between the two, where you are able to give the employee, that time and that space that they need to like connect with their family, but also make sure that it's within the business needs as well.
You see a lot of resumes and you interview a lot of people. What are some key things that you're looking for and then you end up being right? And what are the red flags that you kind of see immediately?
That's such a good question. I think it's a little nuanced with Hook because we hire so heavily based on core value alignment. And I think that's why our team has been so successful at creating this like really great environment for each other. For me, when I look at resumes, of course, I'm looking at their experience. Of course, I'm looking at, where do they volunteer? What do they do outside of, their 9 to 5? And this might sound a little strange. I kind of just am like, what vibe am I getting from this? Does it seem like a person who, puts themselves into their resume and isn't just trying to optimize it for an ATS or AI or something like that? I want to see your personality in your resume. I want it to speak to me a little bit because that's what's going to prompt me to reach out to you. I think at Hook, yes, we look at experience, like I said, but at the end of the day, we will take a solid core value fit over somebody who has every single box checked on their resume.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, and I know that's different for many companies. I understand that, larger companies, they don't maybe have the luxury that we have of being able to go off of vibes. But for us, that has worked really well. And I think when you make it human-centered in that way, of course we've had our maybe mishaps with hiring, but ultimately, like, I think that has worked really well for us.
And a good guiding light. And I think too, like, we were actually just talking about this on a different podcast, like the push for less like standard education. And like, I think at Hook, we don't look at like, oh, do you have to have a 4-year degree specifically? Or like, what is your degree in if it doesn't align? Like, we also are in an industry that doesn't require that. Obviously, that's not going to work if you're trying to like re-enter the workforce or get a job in like nursing or being a lawyer or something that like actually requires like certifications. But I feel like people should be less intimidated by like, I don't necessarily have this education, because people are looking a little bit more at like who you are as a person. And I guess I'm curious how you navigate that if you're like looking to like schedule like an intro call with somebody, like, and you've got somebody who has like really good experience, but maybe like not really like a formal education, versus somebody who maybe has better education but like low experience. I think there can be pros and cons on both sides, but
I think you're right. I think there are both pros and cons, and ultimately it comes down to how does that conversation go? I'm going to give them both equal opportunity. I'm going to ask them the same questions. I'm going to give them the same opportunities to show me, what they have to offer and why they would be valuable to our company. Really, it depends on the person. I don't think that experience or education are really hard and fast deciding factors. We talked about this a little before the podcast started. I'm a college dropout, and I think that just because you don't have that education, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be a hard worker. Honestly, sometimes I feel like, at least for me, for a long time, I felt like I had to prove myself. I had to show up, 10 times better than the person who was working next to me who has a 4-year degree, because I'm already starting at a disadvantage, even though I don't see that as a disadvantage.
For sure. Yeah, I feel that. And I think that's been like a core of the culture of like of people that you've looked at to hire is like, I don't even think that you ever even really like come and say, oh, this person's going to be a great candidate because this is their education or their degree or like they have and maybe it's more of like a background or an interest, because I think that's the biggest thing that we were talking about, like how do you encourage your kids to go to college or not, because like I don't have a 4-year degree either, so I can't be like, you have to do this because this is how it's always been done. But I think the one benefit of like getting college degrees is like, hey, I'm seeing that I have an interest in this, and then I did finish this degree in this
and some jobs
field.
ask for it.
It shows commitment, right? It does. It shows commitment. It shows that you're able to kind of like stick through something that is really, really hard. You think about all of the things that a young person can go through just in their first 4 to 6 years of college, navigating all of those different life changes and you're coming of age, relationships, right? Jobs, what helps familial stuff, right? It matures you, but if you can stick with college throughout all of those things, then it does
tell something about you.
Yes, it absolutely speaks to your character, and so I never want to diminish somebody's education. I think a lot of our newer hires are fresh out of college. And I think the most impressive things that we've seen from them is that they're athletes and they are graduating from college early, or they have a 3.8 GPA. And so those things are great, not because, you have a 3.8 GPA. It just tells me that you're a hard worker.
A little bit of that story that maybe they can't fill with experience.
Exactly.
I am wondering, have you ever taken a risk on somebody and were right about them?
We do that all the time. We do it all the time. Again, because I think our hiring process is so atypical. We're not just looking at a resume and the experience and education. I think we take risks a lot. And I think when you're betting on a person as a person, a lot of times you're going to be right. You know,
I love that.
and especially if that person is already coming maybe a little disenfranchised. I mean, the job market right now is insane. It has been for several years now. You know, if they've been getting a lot of rejections, or if they don't have the education or the experience that the job post lists, you know, I think that they come and they're already a little nervous, and they're not sure if it's going to work out. And so when you're betting on a person who's coming to you like that, and they get the opportunity to show you that they deserve it, 9 times out of 10, I think they're going to overperform, and they're going to be a great fit. So
what was your experience like? You were mentioning that you were re-entering the workforce as a young mom.
yeah.
How was that challenging, or how was that rewarding?
You
later on?
know, I mean, I had my daughter when I was just shy of 21. So 2005 is when she was born. I had my son in 2007. It was a very different time.
Yeah.
At that time, you know, we were expected to, you know, go above and beyond in very toxic work environments because, you know, you're a mom. So you had to show up even harder because you had kids. And for me personally, re-entering the workforce, because I was so young, it was just I'm just going to get in there and do whatever it is I have to do. I'm going to prove myself. I think now moms have much a bigger advantage where, like I said, things are changing. People are noticing you know, softer benefits and culture. And I think now moms re-entering the workforce can kind of look at a position and say, this isn't for me. This isn't for my family. So I think there is a degree of ability that they have to be able to choose.
Years.
Yeah, it's crazy. So,
And I was just thinking about this because I don't know if it was like right when you went back to work, but you were a makeup artist for a long time.
yes.
So like, what do you think is, and like you said, you're like, I'm just going to do whatever I need to do to pay my bills.
The hustle.
At this point. So like, what do you think was your ability to kind of take a step back, or like how long did it take for you kind of just like grinding and doing whatever it took to like pay bills and make it? Then you like, when do you think you got to make that change of like, okay, now I want to like find something that's actually like a good fit for me? And like, what would you give people kind of as like, hey, you know what, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. If maybe you do just have to do something to like make money.
For me personally, you know, makeup was always, it wasn't just a way to pay the bills. It was always also like a creative outlet.
Yeah.
It was something that I loved doing. I did it for almost 17 years, you know, both
So fun.
with companies. I worked for MAC Cosmetics for a long time, returned to them, you know, years later, did freelance. For me, it was extra income, but it was also just a way to
Rewarding.
express myself and, you know, get out of the 9-to-5 bubble and do something fun. I'm going to pause. What was the actual question again?
I was saying like, how long, like, do you think people need to like, just like grind and be like, hey, I got to do what I got to do.
I mean, as you know, if you're a young mother, I think being intentional almost immediately, I think is important. And I know that's really just so much easier said than done, because it's like, I'm a single mom. I need to make this money.
Yeah.
If I could go back though, you know, I would be so much more intentional about the jobs that I took.
Yeah.
I would be so much more intentional, you know, asking the right questions in interviews, because when you're young, you're not asking questions. You're just like, give me this job. I need this income, right?
Yeah.
But be picky, because even though it seems just like a job, it's gonna, you know, it can impact.
It's going to run your life.
Yeah,
For sure.
it will. And you could be, unfortunately, you could be stuck in a job that you hate because it's a necessity, because you have bills to pay. So, yeah.
And there's always opportunities in that. Like if you get a job that you're like, I do actually like this company, and then you're going to find where you fit in that company. If it's like
Absolutely.
in the direction that you want to be in. And I think like companies, especially like small to mid-sized ones, I think see that and they're like, hey, this is a person that like, maybe they came in a role that like, we just needed to fill this role and that we needed their work. And if they dedicate a lot of time and energy to that, there's going to be more opportunities, I think.
Yeah,
long term.
I think that's a great point too, and I think it's also about, you know, if you're a young person, I don't even want to say a woman or a mom, you know, if you're a young person and you're in the workforce and you're just doing it to get by, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But don't be afraid to voice, you know, hey, I really want this opportunity.
Yeah.
I think I can do this. I think a lot of
For sure.
maybe it's not even siloed to young people. I think there's a lot of people in general who are afraid to say, hey, I'm really interested in this opportunity, or I have this skill set that I can use because it differs vastly from what they're currently doing. That I think is one of the things that people should start speaking out about more, because like you said, if your employer is committed to you as much as you are to them, they're going to find a space for that
For sure.
to nurture. Yeah.
Just develop your skills
Yeah,
and just like
absolutely.
allow
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
flourish in the workspace.
Yeah. But I agree. I think it really is a lot of the small to mid-sized companies. I think that's the sweet spot. Unfortunately, I think, you know, big corporations, I don't think they're there yet. But working
It's
for
a
a
little
small,
harder to navigate too, and like to have people see your unique skill set.
Yeah.
When it is like, oh well, I'm only working with people who have the same job as me or whatever.
Yeah.
That looks like.
Yeah.
What I was just thinking about this because you're from Texas originally. We kind of talked a little bit about this beforehand, but like you have a different perspective of like communication in Minnesota too. So I think like kind of going towards like how can people better navigate like difficult conversations, not necessarily only in just like in the workplace, but like from you growing up a little bit more like direct communication. How do you think people can use that to create an advantage at work or at home and just in communication in general?
I mean, yeah, I loved you guys talking about this in your last episode, because being a Minnesota transplant, I have really had to learn to, as I'm sure you have as well, had to cater my communication style a lot of the time. And at this point and this like stage in my life, I don't have time for that. I don't want to do it. You know, I'm never going to be rude, but the way that I communicate is the way that I communicate. And I think if you are somebody who struggles with having difficult conversations, practicing. I know it sounds so silly, but the amount of times when I need to have a hard conversation that you will find me walking around my house, verbally having that conversation and like, I sound
Amazing.
like a crazy person.
No, that's
but it is,
like a
you know,
skill set.
it's like you're doing kind of like a self role play, and you're also going through, what if they say this? Okay, then this is maybe how I would approach it. When you're actually having those conversations as somebody who has historically been told you're too mean, and I don't think I mean at all. No. I think I'm one of the nicest people I know. Or you're too direct, or you're too aggressive. You know, honestly, as a woman, we get told that all the time. And if it was a man having the same conversation, I don't think that would have been an issue. A lot of times what I've learned is like prefacing the conversation with, I don't know if this is going to come across the way that I'm hoping it will come across. And if it doesn't, I'm really sorry. This is kind of like what I have to say. And I'd love for you to kind of give me feedback on that. Or I'd love for you, if this isn't coming across the way I intended, you know, can we talk about that?
I had a boss once and he said, you know, communication is it's not what's said, it's what's heard.
Absolutely.
And I had to work in a lot of cross-cultural environments. We served refugees and I was there for 7 years.
Yeah.
And it just was blowing my mind that you can say exact same thing to 10 people and 10 people heard an absolutely different message.
Different thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you become effective, clear, polite?
Right.
But how do you also mind people's time?
Yeah.
Because it's not about 6-paragraph email.
Right.
It's about clarity and delivering a proper message.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's,
and I think just coming from a place as a human, I think that's the biggest thing. I think that when we're trying to have these tough conversations, especially as women, I think that we're amping ourselves too much, amping ourselves up too much for them. And we're replaying worst case scenarios in our head. And we want to make sure that we sound polished and we sound professional. But at the end of the day, people aren't going to resonate with polished and professional. They're gonna connect with you as a person, you know, from a place of just two humans trying to communicate in the best way that they can, and maybe not doing it well, but so I think if you have some humility around that and you're able to say, I don't know if I'm communicating this correctly, but please listen to me.
Yeah.
I think that's going to automatically kind of put those guards down, and they're going to be willing to be like, she's coming to me as just like another person unsure of how to have a hard conversation. And everybody can relate to that because everybody's been there.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like there is like so much fear. Like you want to be able to be like, I can have hard conversations.
Yeah.
It's like, I've got it and I've been a professional for this many years. Like it's not a problem for me, but it is. Like it's all of us like do that. And I think the more you start to like even like hear people who might even have more experience, like they get tripped up on their words. They don't really know how to say it. And I think the moment that happens, there is like almost like a human connection
where
to
you're
it.
like, clocked it.
Yeah, and you're
great.
like, okay, now we can actually like
finally.
all be on the same page. Like we can like get a little bit more.
And those conversations never get easy. You know, being somebody who's been in HR, I've had to fire people. I've had to have really tough performance conversations. I've had to have awkward conversations. It doesn't matter how much you practice, and it doesn't matter how polished you think you are, and it doesn't matter how many courses you take on public speaking or you know, none of that matters. It never gets easier. You always, at least I don't know about everybody else, I always get nervous. I always get the butterflies and things like that. And so it never gets easier. You just learn to navigate it better.
Yeah.
And then you can go cry afterward, which is usually what I do. It doesn't matter if it goes well. If it goes well, I'm crying out of relief. And if it goes terribly, then I'm crying out of absolute, you know, shame.
Yeah. But it's also, it's like, and then it's over. And I think that's like, we talk about like the like 72 hours of pain, like it's like the prepping for that hard conversation. And then it is like a release afterward, but it really is like preparing yourself and knowing that it's temporary.
Yeah.
And knowing that you're going to just do the best that you can in that situation. I think that a lot of like a hard conversation for some people too, it's like in that interview process when they're like starting to navigate those conversations and like you want to come across genuine, but you want to also come across polished.
Yeah.
What do you feel like you're looking for? You're tough on these like in-person interviews. Erin has a criteria.
I
do.
But like, what would you say is like advice or like, what are you kind of looking for in those? Because I don't think it's like, oh, be perfect and like have your words extremely polished. But
Absolutely
like,
not.
What is like something that maybe you're coming in with a little less experience or you've had a gap in your resume and you're like trying to put your best foot forward? What would your advice to people be?
Yeah, I and again, this might be a little specific to hiring for Hook Agency. Sometimes people who come across that polished, I'm almost like, you're not showing me your real self.
Worried, yeah.
And I understand that it's hard to do that with somebody, an interviewer, of course, that you're just meeting.
Yeah.
I want to hear about why it is that you're looking for a new job. I want to hear about why you think this job would be a good fit for you and not the rehearsed because, you know, it's my next step and I don't want to hear that. I want to hear why you're passionate about what you're doing. Like,
what's your weakness?
Exactly.
I cannot say no, so I just
attention to detail. So yeah, I think just again, coming across as like a person trying to connect with another person, that's really what I look for. Of course, again, I don't want to diminish your experience and your education and all the things and accomplishments that you've done to get to where you are. That's great. And yeah, let's talk about that. But if you're coming across like a robot, for me, this isn't the right place for you. Yeah. You know, and maybe there is a place for you. There is, maybe you are more better suited for a corporate job, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But for us personally, I want to see some humanity. I want to talk with you. I want to joke with you. And so when I do interviews, the phone screens, immediately what I'm trying to do is kind of break down those barriers, and I'll kind of joke around and kind of break the ice a little bit. Okay. Yeah.
So and you're just leading with that.
Yeah. Going into job interviews, I remember it's like you kind of have to you have to feel too, if like, does this feel like a good fit for me? Like, if I feel so uncomfortable, why do I feel so uncomfortable? And like actually being critical, like you as a job seeker are like filtering this as just as much as the people hiring. Yeah. Even though it does feel like 100%. A tough job market, it's still, you have to be able to say like, this just doesn't fit well. And I think like we've always said, I appreciate when people are a little nervous for interviews.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, sure.
you should be. This is like, this could be a big next step for
change.
you.
Yeah, you
So,
could
like,
be here
it's
for
okay
the
to
next
be a little
5-10 years.
Yeah.
So-
And when people have told me like, oh, sorry, my hands are sweaty, I'm like a little nervous.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, good. Like, you care about this. So I think like being genuine in that and not like so buttoned up and like that we have this crazy high expectation. I think people sometimes like underestimate the genuine response.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in interviews together where people are there literally sweating.
And you're like, would you like some water?
And you can see them, you know, they're looking at their notes and they're shaking. And
I never hold that against you.
no, not at all. And as much as the mom in me in those moments wants to reach out and be like, it's okay. Like, we're good. You're okay. Just seeing that, like Bia said, it shows that they care. It shows that they want it.
Love that.
And I think that's a big part of, you know, selling yourself in an interview is showing that you want it. And that's not easy.
Yeah.
You know, you can talk about your experience and all these accolades that you have. That doesn't tell me anything about you really wanting this position, not just a job, but this specific position at this specific company. You having that visceral reaction, I'm sorry you're having it because I know it's the worst, but it's showing me that like you want to be here.
I want to be here. Because we've had
that.
multiple times where we've had after an interview, we're like, I don't know if they really want this job, or I don't even like. I know they want to work here, but I'm not so sure that they want this role.
job.
And like you can kind of feel that off of people. And so I think allowing for the nerves and allowing for that, and even like you said in other conversations, if you're just having a difficult conversation, being like, I am nervous to have this conversation. This is going to be a difficult conversation. If you're even with your spouse or a friend or whatever it is, like it's okay to kind of preface it with like, I'm nervous, or I might come across too strong, or this is why I care. Yeah. And I think it like breaks down that was like, I think you talked to me about that when we were like role playing something, and I was like, it feels awkward to like kind of say what's on the inside of your brain, but I think it disarms people.
It does, because it's a relief, because 99% of the time the other person is thinking the exact same thing. Yeah. And they don't want to say it. It's just like, you know, when people are in a group and or learning something and they're like, do you have any questions? And nobody says anything. And you know, every single person in that room has the exact same question, and nobody is willing to come out and be vulnerable enough to say it. Yeah. And I think that's the same thing in whether it's an interview or a tough conversation. I think that just like showing humility enough to say like, I am not perfect and I am nervous. Like, I love that. Please tell me you're nervous too. I think, like you said, I think it just disarms them, and then they're like, okay, I can kind of like move forward with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to switch gears because you sound so fun in the HR world, but I want to hear how you sound as a mom. Yeah. Because we are a little bit behind. Yeah. With our kids are younger, so I'm just wondering, what's your favorite part of parenting? And like, what is still feeling like a challenge? Because I feel like part of the messaging that we are getting is like, oh my gosh, just go through this when you are in it and they're not sleeping and they're not potty trained. Light at the end and then it's just going to get better. And then, you know, somebody we interviewed for a podcast earlier said, you know, I don't know, it's really tough. And they are just making me nervous.
Yeah, it is hard. You know, I don't think that being a mom, a parent, ever gets easier. I think it just, the situations change, right? It's different dynamics. I think the best and most challenging thing about being a mom is allowing your child to be their like authentic self. Yeah. You know, not putting your past traumas or your past experiences or what you see them becoming or being, not projecting that onto them. Easton is my 10-year-old. Bia knows how close we are. Yeah. he's like my best friend. The best thing about being his mom is just seeing him be completely authentic to the things that he likes. You've kind of seen him go through some of his phases. He went through a little emo phase where he like did eyeliner and like necklaces and black nail polish. Right now he's more like, he's a little football player. And so I think just like giving them the space and watching them do that is so cool. It's so cool to see this little person be like, this is me. Yeah. But on the flip side, it's also challenging because you want to tell them like, don't do that. And for
Yeah.
Easton specifically, I think it was, you know, when he went through his phase of wearing nail polish and like eyeliner and being very gothy. I loved it because I went through that phase myself, if you couldn't tell from like tattoos and stuff. But it was also hard as a mom because I know how people are going to react to that.
Yeah.
And not just children.
Protect him.
Yeah.
To protect
Yeah.
your
Not
child
just
too.
children, about
Yeah.
adults looking at him a certain way and me maybe needing to like step in and,
Explain
you know,
or
go crazy on a
protect.
mom
Yeah,
or
yeah, for
something.
sure.
So it's a double-edged sword. It's really cool to see them, what they become as people
Yeah.
and the different phases that they go through. And like you said, yeah, just wanting to protect them and knowing that some of the choices that they make, unfortunately, are going to make people judge them in a certain way, and wanting to allow them to experience those things because that's how they build resilience and how they build character. And so it's really hard.
What
That's
do you
amazing.
think is good? You have a blended family.
Yes.
So you and Steve, he has two
Yep.
boys, and you have 3. What would your advice be for people navigating the family blend? I know every dynamic is different,
It
every
is.
situation is different, but like your best takeaway, and I know you're always, you know, learning and growing, but like what's your best advice?
Give yourself grace. It's never easy, and you can shower those children that are not yours with love and affection and attention, and sometimes they're still not going to like you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean that they're doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean that they hate you. It probably means that they're dealing with some internal turmoil around the situation, and maybe just try and be as like open and communicative as possible. To be completely transparent, I think hindsight, that's maybe an area where I wish I would have stepped in and been a little bit more open and probed my stepsons a little bit more, as we were kind of like navigating that transition.
Yeah.
And being like, you know, what's going on? Why do you feel this way? Or why is it that you maybe said something to your mom, or, you know, so just give yourself grace and know that what's working for you right now might not work for you in 2 months, and you're going to have to reassess and do all the things all over again. And it's a constant act of, you know, trying to find a balance between all of that. Yeah.
So flexibility.
Absolutely.
It sounds like
flexibility, and just, you know, just go with it, you know, just try and have as much fun as you can.
And they're also growing up. They're teenagers too.
Yeah.
So it's like,
their
don't
brain
take it
is
too
developing.
personally and too hard. But what do you think has been like what has being in HR taught you about being a mom, and what do you think
That was my question.
That's what being in a mom has taught you to like bring to work?
Yeah, I like that question. I think what HR has taught me, and that I've been able to apply as being a parent, is that inclusivity and making sure that, you know, they feel comfortable and safe being their true selves around me, and not judging them for the decisions that they're making. And, you know, I just think giving them the space to kind of like be themselves. That really, I think, is one thing. And also communication. I think that every parent who has multiple children can attest to this. You're a very different parent with your first, second, and third. Especially with me, you know, personally, my first 2 were born 2005, 2007, and then Easton came in 2015. So there's a big age gap, and I did a lot of growing in that time. So for me, it was just having those tough conversations. You know, HR taught me that for sure. Because before, with the other 2, it was my way or the highway, right? You know, if you don't clean your room, or if you're throwing a tantrum, you go to timeout, or you get something taken away. With Easton, I am so much more compassionate, and I wish that I would have had that knowledge with my other 2. Because if Easton doesn't want to do something, or if he's in a bad mood, my first reaction isn't to be like, get to your room, you know, you're not listening. It's usually like, what's going on? What can we do? Do you want do you want a treat? Do we need to go get ice cream? You know, and try and pull those things out of them. And I've seen such a big difference in that approach with him because he's so much more. He tells me everything. And so that's one thing I think that the workforce has taught me that translates into being a mom. On the flip side, I think just nurturing people, bringing that kind of nurturing sense to the workplace, I think has helped a lot, especially at Hook, where a lot of the employees are a lot younger. They're much closer to my daughter's and son's age than they are to mine. Coming from a place of just like genuine care and concern and love. I think that they can feel that. And I think that that's been a big game changer in HR is being able to like connect with people in that way.
Well, and people always talk to us about like HR and like, when do you add HR into a company and like how many people? And like, we just kind of, it just happened so organically and naturally. And I'm like, I was just telling Tim, I'm like, Erin is like our secret sauce on that. Cause I'm like, people just like, you have a really good ability of like, having boundaries and having clear expectations, but like people are always in Erin's office, even if it's just like a positive, like, hey, I want to talk about like I'm proposing to my girlfriend, like I want to talk through this, and like I think people will just say like I told Erin I needed to call her because I was just like having a moment, and it was 45 minutes later I get off the phone. So I think that like you have done a really good job at like creating that, but like it's shown me that because I am like a little bit of a like passive person and I always want people to like me, but like you can have that like direct feedback and communication, but then also be approachable and like having clarity. People like, I think crave that so much, and like having some of that.
I think it makes it easier to have those tough conversations when you have that strong foundation, because they trust you. They know 100%. That you care about them. They know that you aren't,
if you lead with humility, and if you are authentic, I feel like there is no other response but match that.
And so when you build that base with a person and they know that you care about them and they care about you, having those tough conversations, it doesn't make it really easier, but I think it makes the line of communication a little bit easier.
We've been asking this question and everybody had fun answers and we've enjoyed it. What did you stop apologizing for?
Oh yeah,
either at a workplace or maybe just in life or maybe with your family.
I mean, there's so much that I've stopped apologizing for. With age, I think you start to really settle in and understand like what's important, and you become so comfortable in your own skin that the opinions of others are just like, I just really don't care. I think the biggest thing that I've stopped apologizing for, this is more in my personal life, is saying no to people. If they want me to come out, I'm not like a drinker. I don't really want to be out until 12 o'clock at night. That sounds awful to me. So when people invite me, or if they, invite us to like a birthday party for the kids or something, and I'm just like, I'm not in the mental space where I can do that right now, I will just say no. And I was just like, no, sorry, I'm not having a good day, or, so I think that just being, again, being honest about it.
My sister-in-law always says, was that your best yes? And then I'm like, oh, I love this. This is freeing. Yes, it wasn't. I just was trying to accommodate, but
and your time is so valuable. And when you're younger, I'm not saying that younger people don't already realize this. Maybe I was just late to the game. But when you're younger, especially when you're in the phase of like having children and, getting married and friends are doing the same, it's so busy that you get lost and you just get in. I feel like you almost get on autopilot of being like, yes, we'll be there. Yes, we'll be there. Yes, we'll be there. But I think that realizing that your time and your energy and your mental well-being is so valuable. It's one of the most valuable things, and protecting that and simply telling somebody no, it's worth it.
And that's wisdom right there. Thank you for saying that.
And it's not easy to do, but when you really think about it, what's the worst that somebody could say? Maybe they'll get mad at you. You know, is a friendship going to end over it? Probably not. And if it does, then maybe that friendship wasn't something that you need anyway.
Solid. So. Yeah, that's true. Was there a fun item you recently bought that was under $100 and you are pretty proud of it, or
Yes.
it has served you right?
Yes. My husband, shout out to Steve. We were at Target and we bought a heated blanket. It was like $50.
Oh.
And it's so furry. It's almost like what are the viral,
those, like the unhide or no, not
it's
not
like
unhide.
you even asked one time.
Oh, the
you-
Lola blanket.
Yes, the Lola
Yes,
blanket.
yes,
Yes.
I get
Like
ads for it
Yes,
all the time.
it looks exactly like that. It is heated. It is amazing. He hates it because I sleep with it now. And so I'm like, I don't want your comforter. Give me
need
my
my
heated
heated
blanket.
blanket.
And I put it on low. And he's like, I don't get to cuddle you anymore because you're always under your heated blanket. And he's a heater. So he's like, it's too hot. And I'm like
sweaty.
go away.
That is funny. Oh, I love that.
But anybody who needs
Target.
a quality, heated blanket, I think it's Brookstone.
Oh,
It's like the brand.
Okay.
interesting.
And it's the best thing that's ever happened to me.
I love that.
I'm
Especially in
going to get one
Minnesota.
for work, actually.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah. Because I feel like then it's like cozy and
It's so great.
I've never like done a heated blanket because I'm a hot sleeper.
Oh.
But I feel like
it's
on like especially a time like this,
Yeah.
like where it's like damp and cold.
And you just want to
like
on
you're
the
like, I
couch, you know. I joke with him
one for my living
because
room.
I drag that thing with me everywhere. I'm like Linus. Is it Linus from Charlie Brown
Yeah.
who drags his blanket? And I was joking with him and I said, when I die,
with this.
I said, when I die, the way that I'm gonna haunt you is you're just gonna hear the cord from my blanket
gosh, I
dragging
love
on the hardwood
That's so
floor.
You need the like little battery pack thing that like so you don't actually have to plug it in.
Yeah, so that is, I love that thing. It's the best.
That's amazing. What's one thing, the other question that we've been asking a lot of people, what's one thing that you wish that your husband knew that you don't think he does know?
Just one?
I know, these have
Just
gone wild
one?
different ways. Like some people have had,
I deal with a lot of anxiety. I have OCD surrounding health stuff, medication. It's a constant thing. I also have a specific type of OCD where I don't think I've ever told you this either, but I count when I'm talking to people. Certain words will stick out to me, longer words usually, and I count the letters, and I do a weird thing. It's really hard to explain, but I do a weird thing. And so sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, I've done it a lot right now, it's a little hard for me to pay attention, and I'll lose train of thought because I'm busy counting numbers and figuring out the exact spot where this word splits up. It's really strange.
You have some engineer brain or something. That's fascinating.
That's the culmination of it. It doesn't go beyond that. It just makes me weird. It doesn't make me successful really in that way. But he knows those things, but I don't think he understands. And of course he doesn't. He's not experiencing it, and it's really hard. So I wish that he knew exactly how much it affects me just on a day-to-day basis. I mean, my anxiety and OCD is an ever-present part of my reality. And I've learned to navigate it, without medication. I think I've been really lucky in that way. But I just wish that for one day I could like switch brains with him and he could understand the effect that it has on me on a daily basis.
and it's not that you're like not present. It's literally
It's
something
just
like your brain is
something
working in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that probably is something that like a lot of people, like if you could like switch with a lot of people. That's,
Well, I think a
that's
lot of
fascinating. Yeah, I didn't
women
know that.
too, though, like because
All of the things going on.
all of the things that women juggle on a daily basis, we're with work, we run the household, we're making the decisions, we're solving the problems, we're having the hard conversations, we're telling the waitress that no, our husband did not order this, please bring us the right thing. I don't think that men really know what that feels like to be on all the time
in so many places,
Yeah.
and it feels like you're either like I saw it was like a meme or a reel, and it was like, great, can't wait to wake up to go to work, to fail there, and then to come home and like not be good, And I think it's like people from the outside, I think they probably just see that like, oh, she's just competent, she's my wife, she's got it taken care of, she's gonna be able to handle that. But it does like always, there's just like a churning always
And
happening
if you
in the back
would
of
not
your
have
brain.
said that, I would have never guessed that, because I feel like you have a very calming presence
that's good
and
to
even
know.
how you've like answered questions just kind of brought me into your world. And I feel like you're very calm.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I feel like I have anxiety, but I'm not from the world where that gets diagnosed and treated.
Yeah.
So you just learn from a young age to go for a long run.
Yeah,
and calm down.
Right. You
Or
learn
take a shower.
You learn to
calm
manage.
down.
You learn to mask it.
Yeah.
You learn to power through it. I mean, I've sat through meetings while I'm actively having a panic attack, and I don't. No shade to men. I just don't see a man feeling the need to do that. I think a man would be very comfortable being like, I can't do this right now.
Yeah.
Whereas women,
And
I
walking
think,
out and we power through it.
and we power through it. We sit there and we manage. Yeah.
Yeah, and like how much power there is behind that. And then I think you're such a good example of like a lot of strength and power in that, but then also just like you are so nurturing. And I think allowing women to bring that nurturingness to the workplace, I think that's also my final thoughts on all of that is like, as I think there's more women in like higher roles in the workplace, but I think we're obviously saying we're seeing women leaving the workplace because like some of that gap is hard to fill.
Yeah.
But I think like what has been the biggest challenge for me is like I hear nurturing or like kind and like soft as like almost negatives because I think we've been trained that for so long, but like how much power there is in that nurturing
leading with
energy
that.
because it is like that's half of our lives is like you need that like that warmth from, and it is a lot of times women, and I think just like giving that to people and like that is a gift, and I think that's a unique thing that we have in like our company.
Yeah. I think that people connect with that too. It makes them feel safe, men included, you know. It makes them feel safe. It makes them feel like they
belong and
that they belong. And so
back for sure.
I think, you know, having a matriarchal system, like you said, I think that people see that sometimes as like a vulnerability, and it is in a great way. It's not a weakness. It's just centering humans, and it's centering care for each other, and it's centering wanting to like support and uplift each other. That should never be something that is seen as a weakness. I think if we embedded matriarchy a little more into some of the business systems, you would see a lot more retention with employees. You would see, more engagement and more productivity. Because they feel like they're in a place where they matter.
And they can feel that from both sides, because I do think like there's a lot of men that probably do feel that nurturing side, that they feel like, oh, I should just not bring this to the workplace. And then there's also women trying to be like, okay, I got to be more like direct and a little bit more hard charging. So I think it's like allowing just like that full self to come to work, and I think you've done such a good job with that.
Thank you.
So well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
This was fun.
Sweet, it was fun getting to know you more.
I love it.
Thank you guys for joining us on the Best for Your Nest podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode.